Everybody, I'm back with my UFC 243 post-fight breakdown. Still having trouble with YouTube. I'm sitting on a bunch of ice right now because I got a new hip. Friday? Friday I got a new hip. So still in some pain from that, but it's actually not that bad. I recommend anybody who's thinking about hip surgery get it done because it's not that bad. And my foot can turn the right way and all that fun stuff. So anyway, got a new hip. Still did the post show this morning at 1 a.m. with RJ Clifford on SiriusXM. That was a lot of fun. But I'm still having trouble with YouTube. Half my videos just won't load, or they won't process. The problem I'm having is you load the video, you upload the video, and then YouTube processes it and puts it up. Well, it's always at zero. It never processes. So half my videos just aren't loading. I put up another Fight Quest story and won't load or won't process. So I'm going back and forth with YouTube about it, and it's not going great. So hopefully you guys see this in time. The problem is the delay makes them irrelevant. I've had pre-fight breakdowns and post-fight breakdowns that wouldn't load, and by the time they load, they're no good. So anyway, hopefully I get that resolved, or else I have to do something, or, this channel becomes useless. Anyway, UFC 243, Whittaker versus Adesanya, post-fight breakdown. New champ, Israel Adesanya. Let's start. I covered the last three in my pre-fight breakdown, so I'll go over them again. Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. I thought Tai Tuivasa, this was a setup for Tai Tuivasa. Put him in front of another heavyweight who's going to bang. At the time, in 9-1, hadn't been down to the second round, lost his UFC debut to Walt Harris by knockout. A guy that's going to stand and bang with Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa will get the big knockout. That'll get the crowd primed for the co-main and main. It didn't work out that way at all. Tai Tuivasa, the way I described him, I tweeted about this before the fight. I said, look, he's fun. He's got the shoey thing. Crowd really loves him. He's a hard hitter. I don't see that X factor that's going to take him into the top five, make him elite in the heavyweight division. It takes more than, boy, I hit hard, to do something in the heavyweight division. You need that X factor, some kind of speed or angle or toughness or versatility to separate you from a pack of fighters that all hit hard. And I knew Tai Tuivasa wasn't that guy. I thought he could beat guys like Sergey Spivak, and he did not. Sergey Spivak came out and made it about the takedown. And Tai Tuivasa fought like it never occurred to him that takedowns were legal in MMA. Yes, the timing by Spivak was pretty good, but it wasn't a great takedown. It wasn't the slickest thing I've ever seen. Head and arm takedown? You're lucky if that works once, and it worked multiple times against Tai Tuivasa. And he seemed, panicked in a scarf hold head and arm position, which it's white belt stuff. And it's pretty easy to get out of, especially mid-throw. If you can just shrug your shoulders, a lot of times your head will pop right out of it. So it was weird that he seemed befuddled by simple takedowns and really simple ground positioning. I thought he was going to maybe fall to a scarf hold arm lock, shoulder lock from that position, where you push the arm down and pull up on the head and looked like he was going to get that for a second. I couldn't believe it. Tai Tuivasa seemed unprepared for anything but a stand-up brawl. Now, you might understand that early on in a fight. And then Spivak went to the takedown, and you make some form of adjustment. Remember, the fight didn't end in the first round, and in the second round. So you would imagine a fighter with any decent kind of camp would have changed their strategy a bit and changed their timing a little bit, changed maybe the angle of their strikes a little bit to avoid this takedown-centric attack, and he didn't. And got mounted, got beat up, and then arm triangle. Bad performance by Tai Tuivasa, period. Now, Sergey Spivak came in with a different game than Tai Tuivasa was expecting, but it wasn't a slick, beautiful takedown that nobody thought he had. Wow, this is amazing. It was pretty basic takedown stuff. And Tai Tuivasa seemed unprepared for it. So Tai Tuivasa, to me, goes from, fun 10 to 15 heavyweight, maybe he'll have some fun fights, to a guy that I don't know if he belongs in the UFC. Straight up, I don't know if he can stay there. I mean, already a close decision win, Andrei Arlovsky. A lot of people thought he lost that fight, but it was very, very close. Blagoy Ivanov beats him, and then Junior Dos Santos beats him. So he'd already lost to veteran guys who are well-rounded. So we already kind of saw a ceiling on him. But if you can't beat guys like Sergey Spivak at home, I don't see where you go in the UFC. Sure, you could have some entertaining fights, but that's as close to a setup fight, okay, this should be a good one for you, as UFC is going to get. You can't beat that guy. It's hard for them to throw you another softball. Then you become somebody else's softball. That's how it works in MMA. Either you get the softball, you become the softball. I think he might become the softball after this one, where he gets fed to the young, dangerous, tough heavyweights and If he can't make it, he can't make it. So big step back for him. A big step forward for Sergey Spivak. Yeah, I'd say so. He got his first UFC win. Got it in front of I want to say hostile crowd, but Australian fans are great. But he showed extra wrinkles. But will that work against elite talent? No. But he could take that spot Tai Tuivasa had of, exciting heavyweight who's fun to watch, who'll beat that fringe top 15 guy, and that's where you're going to stay. That's fine. He might make a career out of that, but we'll see. Dan Hooker, Iaquinta. It was a stand-up battle, and Dan Hooker won it. That was pretty much it. It was all kickboxing. Dan Hooker controlled the range through good combinations. Iaquinta, when he couldn't make his takedown a factor, that was kind of the end of the fight. When he shot in on that high crotch, and the problem with the high crotch is exposed as the head and the proper defense. And so Dan Hooker sprawled on him and was throwing elbows. I thought he might finish him right there. Those were nice elbows, and they were landing solid. And anyway, Iaquinta able to get out of that position, but wasn't able to make his takedown a factor. Every time he sprawled in, Dan Hooker did a good job with that kind of crotch lift sort of defense, sprawled, stayed on top, and he started eating elbows. And what does that tell Iaquinta? Can't shoot in, especially from that high crotch position, and get the takedown, or else I'm going to get knocked out. So it made it a stand-up battle. Iaquinta really couldn't find his rhythm. He landed a couple good overhands, some power shots, but as soon as Dan Hooker was able to angle out of those, he was fine. Just controlled range, and he was the better striker. It was a kickboxing battle, and Dan Hooker was the superior kickboxer. That was pretty much the name of the game in that fight. I thought he deserved the unanimous decision win, and he got it. Where does he go from here? Well, a lot of fun fights at 155. Of course, he calls out Dustin Poirier. That would be a big step up. Be a fun fight. Poirier could use a win. Not that Dan Hooker's an easy out in any sense, but he's been taking on the elite of the elite most of his career, and I wouldn't put Dan Hooker there yet, although Dan Hooker could certainly win. So the problem is it's a risky fight if you're Poirier, because Dan Hooker is very, very tough, but Dan Hooker isn't quite there yet in that, well, as I said, Poirier would only take on the elite of the elite. Dan Hooker's not there yet. Losing to him puts you in that middle rung that's hard to get out of, especially 155 where there's so much talent and so many great guys that if you lose your spot, you slide down the ladder pretty far. So it's a risky fight for him, but we'll see what happens. Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker. I really thought Robert Whittaker could make better adjustments in this fight. What I saw was the first round, Robert Whittaker was windmilling a lot of punches. He was being aggressive and moving forward, but I don't even want to say brawling because he wasn't turning over shots well. More windmilling punches. He was busy. He was moving forward. I was giving him the first round until he got popped right at the end of the first round. Good counter shot, dropped him right on his butt. Bell rings. I really believed Robert Whittaker would then make adjustments because what he was throwing at Israel Adesanya up to that point were these kind of wild punches. He was a little arrhythmic. It was hard to time, but Israel Adesanya the whole time was kind of reading him, and then he got him. Boom, at the end of the first round. That's a gift. And what I mean by that is, if you're Robert Whittaker, he just showed you that he timed you. He wasn't able to finish you, but he showed you he had your timing, and he ran out of time at the end of the first round to really capitalize on it. What do? Okay, he showed that he can time me. I have to change my timing. I have to change my strategy. He came back in the second round and didn't change a damn thing. I really couldn't believe it because there's no clearer signal that your opponent has you read than bang, a counter shot that drops you with 5 seconds left in the round. He's got you. He timed what you're doing. It took him a while, but if you keep going back to that well, he timed you once, he's going to do it again, and this time it's going to be shorter. And that's exactly, literally what happened. He came out with the exact same striking strategy, and Israel read him again. This time it was shorter. This time he hurt him before the end of the round, and he finished him. I couldn't believe with all the things that Robert Whittaker knows how to do, and with all of the talent, the physical talent he had faced before in Yoel Romero, that he kind of found a way to adjust properly to a style that's very difficult to adjust to, that he didn't make any adjustments, that he didn't go in with his takedown, that he didn't start grappling, that he didn't change up the timing and the pace or anything. It was the exact same striking style he used in the first round that got him dropped on his butt. And a savvy veteran fighter takes those moments for the lessons they are. Okay, boom, you got my timing, I'm not doing that again. Put your hand on the pan and it's hot, you take your hand off of it, okay, don't touch that. I couldn't believe what I was seeing in terms of that round number 2, and he's coming out with the exact same strategy. that Israel Adesanya had figured out. Now you're playing right into his wheelhouse. What Kelvin Gastelum did so successfully is he was able to basically get into short range with Israel Adesanya and make him uncomfortable. I didn't feel Robert Whittaker ever necessarily did that. He was flailing a lot and using a lot of long-range, medium-range stuff where he was almost windmilling his arms. Well, Israel Adesanya can handle that kind of range. He's very good at long and medium range. He never got into short range, even though Israel Adesanya has a good clinch. We never saw Robert Whittaker force him to use it. We never saw Robert Whittaker feint with the takedown, fake with the takedown, reach a little bit to see if he overreacts and I can move to something else. We didn't see any of that from Robert Whittaker. That's what really surprised me. It could have been the time off. It could have been the injuries. I don't know what it was, but we didn't see any fight IQ adjustments from Robert Whittaker. If you don't adjust against Israel Adesanya, he will read you and knock you out. That's it. End of story. And that's what happened. So I was surprised by that. And not that Israel Adesanya won. I thought he had a really good chance of winning. But I really thought we'd see more adjustments from Robert Whittaker that would make Israel Adesanya make adjustments. And we didn't see that. You know, he reminds me a lot, of course, of an Anderson Silva. You got to see the comparisons there. But, you know, the genius of an Anderson Silva was he made adjustments, you made adjustments, he made adjustments back. You know, it's chess, and he was always a step ahead in his prime. And I thought we'd maybe see some of that out of Israel Adesanya, or that Robert Whittaker would force that out of Israel Adesanya. He didn't. He came in with a strategy that he adjusted to and then stuck with it. And I didn't see why he would do that. But great performance, obviously, great knockout, good power, good timing. Everything was right on point. Great finishing instincts, was all over him. Confidence. He's right where he wants to be right now. His next fight, people talk about Jon Jones or Paulo Costa. I think Paulo Costa for sure. I'm not a big fan of the whole double champ thing if there's a division to be cleared out. There is a division to be cleared out for Israel Adesanya. One thing about his rise to the title is he was brought up the right way, in my opinion. But there was certainly an upturn where he fought Anderson Silva well past his prime. Then he fought Kelvin Gastelum for an interim title. It was like, boom, he beat Anderson Silva, who's not quite Anderson Silva anymore, and then bang, he gets an interim title shot. It's a quick turn. He was getting a lot of hype. A lot of people liked him. I really enjoyed calling his fights. And then boom, he's into an interim title. Whoa, beats Kelvin Gastelum. That's great. But there have been much harder roads to the title at 185. He didn't clear out the big monsters, the Jacare, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, even though, Luke Rockhold on a bit of a slide, but he didn't have to take on any of those veteran names other than Kelvin Gastelum. Anderson Silva, tough, but I don't think a relevant title contender. I don't know what the hell that is. I didn't think he was a relevant fighter to take on looking for a title. The reason is that his best fights were behind him. I didn't think it should have been, boy, you beat Anderson Silva and that's a title eliminator. I thought that was, really? And remember Dana White said, oh, this is a title eliminator, and Anderson Silva fighting for a title after the streak he was on? I would have found that hard to believe. So the only difficulty I really had with it was that he got an interim title shot coming off a fight with Anderson Silva. But beat Kelvin Gastelum, but didn't have to go around these big, veteran, tough names, these former champions, people that had held the title. So he has a lot to clear out in this division. Now, a lot of those names have left. Jacare, Chris Weidman's gone, Luke Rockhold's gone, a lot of the veteran names are gone. Paulo Costa is very, very tough. That dude is it's like watching the Hulk fight. Unbelievably strong, and he'll make you pay. Every time he hits you, he's going to hurt you. That's just how he strikes. So that's going to be a tough one. Obviously, Yoel Romero waiting in the wings. That guy's a physical monster, tough for anybody to beat. So I would like to see Israel Adesanya clear out the division before moving up to take on Jon Jones. Would I like to see that fight? Of course I would. But let the guy clear it out. Double champ is great. I love that. Once you have cleared out a division, when I don't see anyone else for you to fight in the division, then I want to see a fight like that. And I don't want to see it yet. I want to see Israel Adesanya clear out 185. That means right now, Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero, Cannonier maybe if he gets another good one. I would like to see him take on Cannonier. And then we'll see about 205. But great moment for Israel Adesanya. Great moment for Australian MMA. Great show all the way around. But good stuff for Israel Adesanya. He showed that he's in the right place at the right time. And he has a future at 185. So hopefully this loads and you guys get a chance to see it. And I'll have more coming soon. Later.